Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've been doing some research on 9/11 here recently. I wanted to go over today the debris that fell out of both of the Twin Towers in and around the area, obviously before the towers collapsed, because when they collapsed, all of that initial debris that fell out of both of the buildings was really just scattered with the debris, obviously, of the two 110-story skyscrapers that fell in basically the same exact footprint. And in looking through some of these reports, I will say, when it comes to like September 11th lost media, I think the best way to find it would be through some of these older reports that came out in like 2002, 2003. I've seen several detailed reports where obviously if it's coming out in like the early 2000s, it's really not going to be censored or anything like that. We know that YouTube completely redid their advertisement system. They took down a bunch of September 11th videos in like 2012, 2013, but there are a lot of reports on the internet that do have some detailed information when it comes to screenshots of certain videos. It is very interesting, but I just took a few different screenshots of this report and I wanted to go over it, just things that I found interesting, along with the debris that was reported on the ground in and around the Twin Towers. Obviously, the first thing that everybody saw, and this was kind of forgotten about, I did a video on this, was the 9/11 snow, which was caused basically immediately after the North Tower was hit and the South Tower was hit. And with them both getting hit, it created this visual of there being so much just office paper in the air just coming down almost as like a snow effect in New York City. And that lasted only for a little bit, and it did go away relatively quickly because it was only there initially after the buildings got hit. And then the paper, flutters, it goes onto the ground, things like that. But this first one, this is the Second World Trade Center, so the South Tower. You can see the progression between 9:04 a.m. and 9:58 a.m. in terms of the north face fires, the east face fires, the south face fires, and the west face fires. It's interesting to note when it comes to the South Tower, obviously there's a lot of progression in terms of where the fires spread in the north face and also in the east face. The south face, you can see the entry point of the airplane. The west face left completely untouched throughout the entire ordeal. So that's interesting when you think about possibly trying to escape, maybe scaling down the towers. You would want to go to the west face, and that would be obviously the most ideal place, considering it was untouched totally in terms of where the plane was hit in the floor. It's just interesting to look at that. And then when it comes to the debris that did rain down, you can see they've got a report aircraft debris, collapsed debris, debris from inside of the building, along with street debris. The main aircraft debris that was found immediately after the plane crashes included several different plane tires. And one of the tires did survive the collapse because it ejected from the building so far to where like the collapse happened and it was so far away. There were a few different plane pieces that were so far away from the collapse where they didn't get buried by the collapse. It's crazy. I can't even understand the route that one of these tires took to where it bangs into the Twin Tower and it comes out unscathed. I'm not even sure how that's possible. They were saying it had to have been one of the back tires. Obviously, all of the front tires would be completely destroyed upon impact, but possibly one of the back tires somehow ejecting out of the building immediately upon impact. And some people say they have video of one of the tires landing. It's just crazy. So you have tires. They did find an engine, like a busted up one of the engines to one of the planes, just ridiculous. And then you also did have the lower section of the plaza completely coated not only in dust, but also different building material from the walls, because there really would be no place for the wall to go other than into the building, like collapsed into the building or get ejected back out. And that's where the falling building aluminum cladding is what they reported fell from both of the Twin Towers. There was also a streamer. So yes, a Twitch streamer, I'm kidding, but a streamer, an object that emits smoke as it falls and leaves a trail. So there was objects that were falling out of the Twin Towers that had emitted smoke, and that was reported in videos as well. And then there were also a molten material dripping from the South Tower that was visible, and then supposedly a hanging floor was visible in a video or a photograph, a sagging or hanging object suggesting a floor is visible within the windows. And when you think about the idea of these floors beginning to sag, I wonder if anyone was possibly on those levels, or if those levels were just way too, hot. I'm guessing they were way too hot. But obviously, if you were in the building and on one of those levels, I mean, the floor would be like almost caved in or like curved down because they were sagging so much. But again, I would imagine it would be way too hot to survive something like that. It's just interesting to think about. And also, when it comes to the dust, I was reading this. It says it was not possible to identify the source of the dust, but it seems likely that it consisted of pulverized concrete, since large areas of several floor slabs were missing in the vicinity of the aircraft impact, as well as additional evidence that the aircraft caused extensive damage to interior portions of the tower as it entered and passed through the tower. So it was likely pulverized concrete. There was a ton of dust on the ground pretty much everywhere in and around the Twin Towers right after both of them were hit. And it was probably from interior concrete that was completely destroyed and just created dust particles that settled outside of the building. That's at least the theory when it comes to that. There was also a photograph that was taken at the corner of Liberty Street and Church Street, looking west down Liberty Street. It was taken before the South Tower was struck, so the debris had to come from the North Tower. The bridge across Liberty Street connected the southwest corner of Building 4 to the Bankers Trust building, and apparently there was a deep layered debris that stretched across much of the visible length of Liberty Street. Most of the debris was lying to the south of the South Tower. The only possible way for it to have reached this location is by being blown by the prevailing wind from the south face of the North Tower. It is likely that it was dropped from the dust cloud seen to the south of the South Tower. So they're saying that a lot of the debris actually was caught by winds and it pushed it away, or pushed it to a certain area right next to the South Tower. There was also extensive damage to the South Tower of One World Trade Center, suggesting that parts of the aircraft may have passed completely through the North Tower following the aircraft impact into the north face. And then this report was from a while ago, but it does say that there was no obtained images that show objects exiting the south face during the impact, but several photographs and videos show portions of landing gear and aircraft tires at locations to the south of the tower. And so because this is the North Tower, it was extremely hard to film because nobody knew that was going to happen. That's why we only have like 3, maybe 4 confirmed videos and still photographs of the North Tower being impacted. They really can't say for 1000% certainty that there were parts that just ejected straight through the tower and just kept on going past there. But based on where they landed, that's what happened. There's just no video of it because nobody really, obviously nobody expected it to happen. The South Tower, the impact of it was infinitely more documented because everyone was looking at the North Tower and all the cameras started to point up. But the North Tower originally getting hit, that's where the rare stuff comes from, and that's why they don't have videos of the parts ejecting straight through the building. But because the opposite wall was impacted and there were holes in it reportedly, there is the thought that some of these parts just kept on going straight through and broke through entirely. It'd be interesting to see the opposite wall of the North Tower just in general as the crash was happening, and you could see the wall break and like tires and other pieces of the plane fly directly through the broken wall. There was also a crazy shot of a plane tire that was outside of the church lying on Cedar Street near the intersection with West Street. It was an aircraft wheel that was embedded in one of the windows. Oh, that is what that is. Yeah, so that is crazy. So basically what it is, and there's like exposed cable wire there too. There's like, you can see the little slits, you know how on the walls with the Twin Towers, the famous slits, you can see the slits, and embedded within one of the slits is literally a plane tire. So that is remarkable to see something like that, and it's right next to the Greek Orthodox Church. That would be directly next to the South Tower, or under it, if you will. And you can see this is just an observation on when everything happened. This is interesting because it tells you how quickly The nose of the aircraft impacts. This would be the South Tower. 0.03 seconds, a bright orange flash is seen from the aircraft body in the vicinity of the tower wall, only apparent for one frame. About 1/10, maybe 2/10 of a second in, puff of dust appears on the South Tower face near Windows 81. The aircraft disappears completely inside of the tower. So it took 0.2 seconds for the aircraft to disappear inside of the tower. Additional damage and dust appears on the east face. Damage and dust appears on the east face near the windows. Initial damage and dust appears on the northeast corner at 0.4 seconds. Large objects exit the north face near window. In the vicinity of floors 81 and 82, damage and dust appear in the east-faced window, and all of this is happening within the context within 1 second. You can see all of these damages that were being reported. So that's just another interesting thing to look at there. And then when the South Tower collapsed, it was reported that it generated a pressure pulse within the North Tower that forced smoke and fire from windows on all four sides of the tower. This was especially apparent from the intense fire burning on the western half of the 98th floor on the south side. Following the collapse of the South Tower, there was a short period of time when smoke flow from the North Tower was greatly reduced. So in essence, it seems like the pressure within the North Tower was heightened because of the South Tower's collapse and just the overall seismic event with the South Tower collapsing and the North Tower being right next to it. Obviously, it's going to have some impact. I always talk about the damage to the North Tower, but it's also going to help stroke the flames and apparently put pressure into the building of the North Tower because of the South Tower collapse and all the sound waves and everything. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.